Hi, everyone. I'm Cecilia Dowd, a reporter with News 12 Long Island and the president of the Press Club of Long Island. And I'm so excited for tonight's panel. We have Alison Kosik, who years ago actually worked with me at News 12 Long Island, and she has a new book out. I'm super excited to talk about it. It's What's Up with Women and Money. And Alison, I'm going to first have you just introduce yourself and tell everyone, can you take us through your path as a journalist briefly?
Thanks for having me on tonight, Cecilia. My path through journalism is long. I've been around the block a few times. Do you want to hear all the way how I started, or where do
Yeah,
you want? Okay.
oh, yeah.
So, I went to American University in Washington, D.C. I wound up, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a journalist. So I decided to make DC my journalism playground. So I decided to intern and work simultaneously, oftentimes at two or three jobs at once while going to school, because I wanted to just kind of drink up as much experience as I could, because I knew that there was just so much media going on Capitol Hill. So I would, at any given time, honestly, I would be working at two to three, whether it was a job and an internship or all internships. But it really became my journalism playground in so many ways. I did everything. I did audio for C-SPAN. I did field producing for affiliates across the country who used a Washington, D.C. bureau as their political bureau. I helped write. I just did all sorts of things. Interviews were the biggest job, which certainly helped in my later career. I worked under people at these Washington bureaus that had been in the business such a long time that I learned so much. Um, after college, I went to work at CBS NewsPath here in New York. I was a producer, and I decided to take that job because I knew that a lot of back then tape was coming through the newsroom, and my whole goal was to put together a tape and send it because I knew I wanted to be a reporter. And so I put a tape together, and I remember but I wound up getting two job offers. One in West Virginia to be an anchor, and my second job offer was Corpus Christi to be a reporter, Corpus Christi, Texas. And I was like, and I remember I said, "Oh, I don't want to be an anchor. I want to be a reporter." And I remember they were trying to get me to go to West Virginia. They're like, "We'll pay for your clothing." I was like, I don't need that. I don't need the money. No, I'm going to go to Corpus Christi, Texas. I mean, nowadays it's funny. I'm older now. If my kid said that to me, I would say, "What are you crazy?" But anyway, I wound up taking a job at my very first reporting job on air in Corpus Christi, Texas. It was an interview over the phone. I packed two boxes and went there, and I'd never seen it in my life, and so I just went. And I was a reporter there for a year, and so wound up bouncing around Texas for a while as a reporter, and then went to West Palm Beach in for a couple of years, WPEC TV, and then went to News 12 with you, Cecilia. And I worked at WCBS for a short time, and then suddenly got a call from someone at CNN. In between that though, I was actually, let me rephrase that. I would after West Palm Beach, I went back to Washington, D.C. and worked a while on Capitol Hill as an adult. I say an adult because then I started having kids, and so I worked for Sinclair Broadcast Group. I was their Washington, D.C. reporter, so I would kick out a package every day and do live shots for their affiliates. And and it was there that I would hang out on the floor. The Sinclair Broadcast Group was located on I Street, which had the backdrop of the White House. And so CNN News Sources Bureau was on the same floor, and I oftentimes would just go into the bureau across the hall and just hang out. And I got to know everybody. And this was over like a period of 2 years, I guess, at least. And then when I came back to New York again, I started working at WCBS. And when I was leaving that job, um, I got a call from this nice woman in Atlanta who said, "Allison, can you come work as our business reporter for CNN News Source, the affiliate services division of CNN?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "What's the job?" She said, "It's to fill somebody's maternity leave, and you would be our reporter at the New York Stock Exchange as a freelancer." I said, "But I've never covered business. I've never covered like that kind of financial business ever." She's like, Oh, honey, don't worry about it. You'll learn it real fast.
Oh my gosh.
She was really nice, and I laugh about it because she was right. You know what? I think that if you the reality is I really was interested in it, and I didn't know how much I would become to love it until I really dug into it, and so I really did. I read everything I could. I interviewed and did informational interviews and really just soaked it all up. And then, lucky for me, I got offered a job about 2.5 years later, 2 years later at CNN to be CNN's business correspondent. And I was there for more than 15 years, loved it. And then I was part of one of the layoffs that they had where they laid off like 400 people in 2023. And so I was laid off in 2023 and shortly after I started freelancing at ABC News and that's where I am today.
That's
Freelancing.
awesome.
Yep.
And guys, if anyone has a question to put in the chat, that would be great. So then I can interrupt Allison at any time and ask her questions. So Allison, what made you want to write this book?
Oh, well, the book came from here's the book, my one visual, guys. There it is. Um, I had wanted to write this book for a long time. I had thought about it since I would say at least 2012, and that's when I was getting a divorce. And the reason I wanted to write it was despite being CNN's business correspondent for more than 15 years, I wasn't managing my own financial life. And that actually became one of the biggest mistakes of my life because when my marriage went bad, because I let him handle all things financial, I felt stuck. I had two kids under the age of 10 at the time. I didn't feel confident making those big financial decisions. You know, what if I made a mistake? What if I lost all of our money? Um, and so I stayed in the marriage years longer than I should have. And during that time, I remember I was looking around for a book that would help me feel more confident with the financial stuff. Like, you know, at the time, the mortgage needed to be refinanced. I had to give up my leased car and get either buy or lease a new car. These are things I had never done before. Investing, yeah, investing I really had never done before. Even though I talked about it, I didn't I'd never done that. And and to explain that a bit, I mean, I think you can be you can excel at your day job, but there's oftentimes a disconnect on what your ability is maybe in your personal finance life that, you know, we can thrive during the day at our role at work, but not really see that translate into personal wealth. And so I think that that itself reveals a crucial missing link that we have in financial literacy. And and so anyway, so I was missing that crucial link that you know, reporting about the macroeconomy for CNN is very different than taking your own money and investing it and feeling confident about investing it, especially if you haven't done it before, if you let somebody else do it your whole adult life, which is what I did. So I didn't have the confidence. I think I had the knowledge. Obviously, I knew how to invest. I understood the companies. I actually understood all the sort of the things what to look for in investing, but I didn't feel confident in doing it. And so I didn't see a book out there that spoke to me when I wanted to get divorced that said, Allison, you can do this. You can do all these things that are making you reticent to get divorced. But everything was financial literacy. There's tons of books on financial literacy. You don't need me to tell you that. You go to the library, the shelves are lined with them, bookstores, same thing. And that's what I found. But it didn't speak to me because I was thinking these are the mechanics tips of financial literacy, but who am I to think I can do these things? So I decided to write a book that not just gave the mechanics, tips, and tools of financing, but also had stories that stuck, that stick with the reader. And so I decided to do lots of interviews with women who offer cautionary tales of what happens if you don't get involved in your financial life. And I also interviewed some celebrities as well to give some inspirational stories and to show, hey, there are people too, you know. But ultimately, the interviews I think really add color to the book because they bring the mechanics and tools and tips alive of the financial literacy stuff and show why it's so important to be involved. And so I wrote the book that I didn't feel like was out there, that needed to be out there.
So there are so many things I want to talk about. So was it really hard to, because writing for TV is very specific and a very different way to write. was it a hard process to write a whole book and not maybe a 2-minute piece for TV?
Oh, the writing is definitely different. And I didn't necessarily find it hard simply because the way I wrote it was through a journalist lens. I didn't want to get in the weeds and, talk about P ratios up, in a crazy fashion or, or expense ratios. And I wanted to write it just like I would a TV news story. And how do we do that? We write that quick, relatable, easy to understand, and not like where your eyes are going to glaze over. And so that was my goal in mind, that this is how I'm going to write this whole book on all of these topics. I'm going to make it fun, I'm going to make it relatable, easy to understand, and not in the weeds. And that's really how I wrote it. Because this stuff can be boring. And so my
Well, just to interrupt you because you said I can, what I loved about the format was that intermittently throughout, what you were saying, you would include these stories from these well-known people. I think in gray usually. So your
Yeah.
writing is, in the normal text, and then sort of with the gray, you would have these stories of very successful women, which I thought was really cool that you got some big names. Just tick off a couple of the names for us.
Yeah, I mean, those gray parts, and thanks for pointing that out. That was actually the one of the hard, well, I shouldn't say, it was equally as hard as doing all the research, was getting some of these, getting all the interviews, I should say, because yes, I got the celebrities and our eyes go to that. And so I got Sheryl Sandberg, Barbara Corcoran, Rebecca Minkoff, Jessica Alba, Deepika Mutiala. If no one knows who she is, she's the head of Live Tinted. She's an Indian woman who has a money story. And so I got the celebrities, yes, but the other grayed out parts are women whose names you may not recognize and probably won't, because a lot of them are anonymous. They were actually just as hard to get because they're telling their innermost stories. And when I interviewed them over the phone, they so many of them were sobbing to me. I mean, crying. We're so regretful at how they had handled things in their lives because ultimately they're telling their cautionary tales. And so I grabbed chunks of those interviews. So when you see the grayed out parts, it's literally in their own words. Most of them I did change the names because they were totally ashamed and embarrassed about what happened in their lives because they were not involved in their financial life. A couple of examples, quick examples. One woman who's a badass venture capitalist. What's a venture capitalist? Somebody who raises money and grows companies. But she said she when she talked about money, she said, "I'm not good at it. It's not my domain. I don't know how to budget." This is a woman in her 50s who didn't even know what an IRA was. A woman who grows companies. She didn't take care of her own financial self. She didn't try to learn the financial stuff, the personal finance stuff. And this is what I'm talking about, that disconnect. She's she could be a wealthy woman, but she spent all her money. She's done really, really well, but she's only got $100,000 in savings. And only during her 50s did she learn what an IRA was and maybe start investing. Another woman who married to a software guy, a woman who was also in the software industry. She found out 2 years prior that her husband had colon cancer, and two young kids. And it wasn't until the weekend before he died that they decided that they needed to get his will intact. And so on a Friday, they got the papers from the lawyer, got them signed, and the lawyer was going to come get them on a Monday. The husband died on a Sunday. So they had a 2 year runway, and these aren't stupid people. They had a 2 year runway, and he died without a will, died without a trust. And to make matters worse, she had asked him who the beneficiaries were on the accounts, their investment accounts, and how much life insurance he had. Not only did she find out that he didn't have enough life insurance because she wasn't working, she was raising two young kids and he was supporting the family. So not only did she not have enough life insurance because he didn't take out a big enough policy, and that's another problem that people have is they don't take out enough life insurance, which I explained that in the book. Um, they he put his brother as the beneficiary on two of the investment accounts, and she doesn't have a relationship with the brother. Don't like each other. So guess who got all the investment money? Not her. So she is stuck. She was stuck having to try to get back her career and somehow make enough money to support her family now. And so these are the cautionary tales, the types of cautionary tales that are told in this book. Um, and that I'm trying to kind of get women to understand that even if you've got a husband who takes care of you and is making all the money, my suggestion is if you have any kind of career at all, keep your toe in the water, even a little bit, part-time, barely part-time, just keep something going because you never know what could happen. I mean, life can change on a dime.
Yeah. All right. We have a question. Have conflicts of interest been a concern as a journalist? Are you sensitive about what industries you invest in?
Um, I'm not because I have never been held to that. Um, but I mean, I have reported on companies in which I invest in. I mean, at CNN I did. Listen, I try to be as objective as possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're human. I hope I was objective. I tried to be objective, and I was all about reporting the facts. And I still am. That's all I do is so. In my opinion, you can't be subjective if you're reporting the facts. So I try to avoid that conflict of interest just by sticking to the facts.
Um, so one of my hardest things, just I'm gonna kind of go between what's in the book and just as a journalist having written the book. I'm sorry, I fixed my thing. Um, it's always difficult for me as a reporter to figure out what to leave out. Did you have that problem with writing the book?
Oh, definitely. I left out a whole chapter. I cut a whole chapter in favor of writing more about other parts of the book. I wanted to have a side hustle chapter, and I remember my editor was like, "This is going to get really long." I said, "Then kick out the side hustle so I can go longer on the other stuff."
Can you tell us a little bit about the side hustle since it's not in the book?
I didn't want to know. I didn't wind up researching it too much. It
Oh,
was
okay,
part of the
okay.
proposal. So when I wrote the book, I wrote a proposal, and it was part of the proposal, but that wound up on the cutting room floor.
Oh my gosh. So hold on, I took little notes here. You have so many great little tips about small ways that add up where you can increase your spending money, right? Like look through, and this is something, it may sound simple, but it can save money. And it's something I did recently. Look through all those things you're subscribing to, right? Can you just like share a couple of the tips you had with how people can save money?
Hmm. I mean, well, I can just tell you that our it's so easy just to buy those apps. I mean, I was doing it yesterday, and then the app didn't work for me, and I literally went and canceled it immediately because I would forget. So there are a lot of apps that we probably get into and get involved in and forget that we have. But you can go into your Apple account and actually see how much you've subscribed to. But that's yeah, I mean, that's just money just pissing it away. So yeah, that's just one example. But I mean, it all comes down to budgeting. And I know that sounds boring, but the foundation of your financial power is literally your budget. It's the money going out versus how much money is coming in. And the superpower and all that is your self-awareness, and you have to be honest with yourself. So if you can be honest with yourself about what you're really, really doing, are you really going out for coffee 5 days a week? Do you really need to do that? And I'm not looking to squeeze the joy out of life. I love to grab a matcha or a coffee, believe me, but if you're doing it every day, you're throwing your money out because I mean, think about it. It's $7 in the city at least if you get the like non-milk varieties. I
Yeah.
mean, that adds up to a small car payment after you're done with the month. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's things I think that people reading it already know, but I'm kind of letting you know it's okay to think those things and actually take action to help yourself. So, like, if you find yourself eating out for breakfast and lunch when you're out at work, maybe start taking breakfast with you or start taking lunch with you, and so you're not eating out 2 meals and maybe just one. And you're only going to really know this is if you go through your budget. And how do you do that? I say don't do it through an app because that's going to be too easy. You're not going to feel the pain. The drudgery and the tediousness of going through your budget will make you want to make changes, and you'll be able to see them too because you'll be writing it all down or logging it all in your computer, however you want to do it on a spreadsheet. And you're going to see where you can cut back because you're going to see trends in how you spend money, and you're going to figure out real fast, I bet, how you can cut some of those expenses and use that money instead let's say, for example, to invest. And you don't have to invest a lot. You can invest $1 or $5. And now these online investment groups have waived fees. So you can just keep putting in money, and it can be little bits at a time.
All right, we have another question. What's the best way to introduce a young adult to understanding finances and investing? And this is a really good question because I think people my age didn't have that when we were younger.
I mean, the best, I think that there are a lot of good ways to, I mean, it depends on how young, but you can literally just log on to your investment account and show somebody who's, I would actually probably do the investment thing a little later in life. I think the younger the child is, I think it helps to just show how you shop around even, and that starts to help them understand about the value of money. I think they have to first understand the value. And so let's say you want to buy a TV and you're shopping around online, you can show different prices and maybe show the numbers and which number is bigger, and for the same quality TV. And then I think as kids get older, I think then you can show the investment thing. I think you can literally just go online and show how to log on to the investment account. I mean, I interviewed adults in my book who had no idea where to start on the Fidelity page. Like, and they're not dumb. There was a doctor, well, we'll rename nameless, who's related to me, who didn't who didn't understand. Was just it's overwhelming. I mean, the thing is, it's not that we're incompetent or incapable, it's just we're not confident about it because we don't do it every day. We don't go onto the Fidelity account or the Fidelity page and register and make an account, and then you see that page and it has all these tabs and you're like, what is all this? And it makes you just go, "Ah, I don't understand," and close the computer and walk away. But lucky for me, or lucky for you, I wrote the steps step by step, so it's not so overwhelming. But the sad part is it's that overwhelming feeling that makes people not get involved in their finances. And I think dumbing it down is really important. Or instead of saying dumbing down, maybe just speaking to the person and speak instead of speaking at the person. But I think back to your question though, I think with kids, I think you have to understand the maturity level of the child first and then kind of go from there. I don't think it's too young to start talking about money at all. If you can, you know, I would start visually with young kids.
Do you think it should be part of not just with the parents teaching the kids, but part of their education in schools?
Oh, absolutely. But at the same time, you have to understand their maturity levels. Like I think about my kids who are 20 and 22. Would they have really paid attention in 8th grade at the investing stuff and the mortgage stuff
Mhm.
and the interest rate stuff? Probably not. So, I think that when we talk about financial literacy in school, it has to be tailored to the age group and the maturity level. Because if you're talking about investing in interest rates to a 12-year-old, it's gonna just it's I don't think much of it's gonna stick. It's overwhelming for adults, and I think going back to showing the value of money to youngsters who are 12 and under, I think that's probably a really good place to start.
So I'm curious, as a journalist, it's always nice when somebody gets back to you after a story and they really appreciated, what you did or they got something out of it. And I'm curious, do you have any anecdotes about anyone who's read the book and they, reached out and told you, oh my gosh, I'm finally doing this now, or, X, Y, and Z?
Funny you say that. So before I wrote the book, I knew there's like a million financial literacy books, and I was like, I get that I had a personal story tied to it, and there was a passion why I wanted to write it. But I was like, who am I to write a book that's like already been written 100? Everybody has a chapter on investing and paying down your debt and building up your credit. Everybody's got those chapters. So why am I going to sit here and waste my time writing this again? So what did I do? I used my journalistic skills and I found the contact information for some of the best-selling authors, the women who wrote finance books, and I called them up and I emailed them and I said, "Why the should I write this book? It's already out there. You wrote it. You wrote it. You're a bestseller." And each one told me, still write it. Go ahead and write it. And the easier you write it to understand, like at a baseline education level, the better. I said, come on, I'm writing to intelligent people. And they said, it's not about that. It's about writing it at the most elementary level you can because people just don't understand this stuff. They just don't. And so I was like, okay, I could. I'll do this. And now I forgot your question because I was leading to somewhere. What was your question? I don't want to not answer your question.
Oh, I'm going back. Oh, I don't even know. Guys, what was my question?
Sorry, because I was going somewhere with
You
that
went
answer.
off somewhere and then I just like forgot. Hello, can someone write to me?
Sorry.
Literally, let me check my phone. I
Sorry,
literally just
sorry. I lost my train of thought
Allison,
because
I
I
was thinking, oh, I was thinking about, sorry, what people's responses were to your book. Because that, sorry, I was thinking
okay.
about my next question as you were.
No, no, that's fine. That's fine. So anyway, so that was the response to writing it, that
Yeah.
it's okay to write something that's kind of already been done. And obviously I'm putting my own flair on it and
And
I
I
have
love
my
that
own
you did that,
story.
by the way, that you reached out to people who've already sort of conquered this niche, right? Like, that's awesome.
I just didn't want to waste my time. I was like, why would am I going to waste my time? I didn't want to waste my time. And so, but you know what, talking about the feedback I get from others, the one person who sticks in my mind when you say that is a woman who I work with at Reuters. She's an executive producer there who's super duper smart. And we went on a shoot together a couple months back and she's like, I'm going to read we were in Las Vegas. She's like, I'm going to read your book on the flight back. I said, okay. Before we land, she walks up to me and into my seat and she says, Allison, I didn't know so much of this. This is going to help me so much. And I looked at her, I was like, but you're so smart. How do you not get this stuff? And for her to say that to me made me realize, wow, I helped her. And who knew that she needed the help? But like, it made me feel good. And then I read some of the Amazon reviews from people, which makes me feel good too. Obviously, I don't like the 1 star person. I don't think they left a review, which I wish they would.
That's brave of you to read
Yeah,
reviews
I
because
know.
I've given up on reading comments on stories. It's too
Yeah,
upsetting sometimes.
but I want to know if what people don't like about it. But that one, people aren't leaving bad reviews. Thank you. Uh, but the good reviews are helpful. That people are saying that it's a book that's sort of evergreen that can be used as a resource. It's not just something that'll just sort of go away. And that's the way I wanted to write it, as evergreen as possible, because as news people, we know the timeliness of things matter. And so I was super careful as I wrote this through my journalist lens to not date it as much as I could.
So I'm curious, when you have, the gray pages where you're telling other people's stories, they're so like cohesively written. So did you go out and interview them almost like you would as a journalist, or did they like write things up for you? Did you travel? Like how did you do that for the book?
So I had one good source, a certified financial planner who's luck behold she has these clients who have these whack stories, these
Oh,
crazy.
okay.
And so it was a matter of her and I. So I spent a lot of time pitching and her also convincing, but me ultimately pitching them. And that was through email and getting their, for them to feel comfortable to talk with me. And then I would call them. And so I would do the interviews over the phone, not even on Zoom.
Did you record them, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, I recorded.
Yeah.
I had my phone. And then on my iPad I was recording, and then I had a transcription
Okay.
app that I used for all of it. I had hundreds of pages of transcriptions for these interviews. These interviews would go on forever, ever and ever, and I would love it. I would have to stop it at some point, but yeah, I would do all the interviews over the phone, and because the transcription um, part of it was important to me, and then also Zoom, I felt would they didn't want to show their faces to me. I mean, these are some really serious, sad stories. They're really wake up calls for all of us, and I didn't even want to ask them to do Zooms. Yeah, so I did them over the phone.
So I'm curious, did your kids read the book?
No,
They haven't read
I,
the book?
no, they have not read the book, but they did read. I mean, I think my daughter read parts of it, but they haven't read it. That's okay. You know what? It incentivized them to finally open their Roth accounts a couple years ago.
Oh, that's
So
great.
they finally took my advice and well, my son's been investing a while actually, but my daughter finally, opened her Roth account and has started to invest. So that's a win.
So how tedious was it to write a book? Like how many hours and hours and hours of research do you like, how do you even
Endless, endless, endless. And here's what's crazy is it took me at least 2 years to write the proposal for the book, which was about 80 pages, which I rewrote twice. So that was 2 years for the proposal. I was given 11 months to write the book. So
so
short time.
2 years for an 80-page proposal, but less than that to write the whole book?
Yeah, yes. So, yeah, the
Well, I
book
mean, it took you to, yeah.
yeah, well, the proposal is to get I wanted to go to the traditional publishing route, and so that was for I got a literary agent who took the proposal and would pitch it to publishing houses. And so that's the point of writing a proposal, is that these publishing houses expect to see a certain format of proposal for the book. And so I spent the majority of my time doing that. So by the time I was ready to write the book in 11 months, I already kind of knew what I wanted to do. um, I mean, I had thought and dreamt it and drank it and ate it, the whole thing for like years and years. I knew what I wanted to do. So when it was time for when I finally got signed with a publishing house and it was time for him to say go to it, I was ready to go. And I wound up getting into a groove where because by then I was laid off and I was just freelancing, so I had my time was my own, sort of, and I realized I was more productive at night, so I would spend my days sleeping and then doing a lot of thinking because what I learned was a lot of writing isn't writing at all, it's thinking about what you wanna write about, and so what I would do is I would exercise or take lots of
Hmm.
walks, I would think about I would do one chapter at a time, what I wanted to write about, and then by the time I sat down at 8 o'clock at night, or I would put on, Shark Tank, turn down the volume, for some reason I wanted to watch that, and I would sit and write till, like, 3, 4, 3 AM, and I would just know what to do. I would it's because I'd thought about it so much, and I would just research and I would also spend the days doing interviews, by the way, so yeah, that my days were spent doing a lot of the interviews.
All right, another question. Any tips for seniors who are overwhelmed by the thought of investing and finances?
Um, it depends on your particular situation and how old you are. I'm not a certified financial planner. I'm still learning like you are. It just depends on your financial situation. If I don't know, are you investing now at all? Are you confident in doing that? Are you going through a certified financial planner? Maybe you need to. And if you're going to find a certified financial planner, make sure it's somebody who I would say is through word of mouth, who's had a good experience with a certified financial planner. And if you do go with a certified financial planner, you have to ask what are their commissions, if there are commissions, and how are they structured. And you should not be afraid to ask that. And if you don't understand and if they make it complicated, then walk away.
Now, I know you don't give specific financial advice, but another question, what do you think of apps for first-time investors like Robinhood? A lot of, and it's funny, about that question. I remember years back, the first time I heard of Robinhood was because my young cousin at the time, he was probably, I don't know, 22 or something, and he was mad about going on his app and investing, and it was so new to me at the time. I'm like, "Oh, wow, like, you don't think of the stock market really, but now that's what so many people do."
Yeah. I have nothing wrong with the apps, I would imagine, as long as, they're FDIC protected. But one thing that I've encountered, just personal experience with these apps, is before I go into it and start to put my money in there, I would find out how do you get your money out? Why am I asking that? Because my son started in college or in high school, actually, started with Cash App. And what is that? Where it allows you to buy fractional shares. Something that you could already do on Fidelity, which in my opinion is superior to the Cash App. But Cash App appeals to the young people. I say go for it. It can't hurt to invest. But he had the darndest time getting his money out of Cash App and getting it sent over to Fidelity. It was a struggle. So my advice is if you're going to go with these other apps that aren't the Fidelities or the JP Morgans or the Merrill Lynch, I would really find out, all right, let's say I want to move my money from Robinhood and you want to one day as an adult consolidate your money into a Fidelity or something. How easy is that? What are the steps that have to actually happen? And if they give you the runaround, don't put your money in there. That goes with anything with money. Don't if they can't answer your question or they say something you don't understand, make them tell you in a way you understand and hold them to it. Because I think a lot of time and this is I wrote this I think in the book and I probably somewhere did, but it's just like when you buy a car, which is one of the chapters in my book. I walk you through how to buy a car. those car salesmen and women, they want to make it complicated for you. They do this every day. It's easy for them, but they want to make it complicated where you feel intimidated and afraid to ask questions. And the same goes for investing. When you go with these, some of these people, these folks who handle your money, they want to make it complicated, so they seem like they know what they're talking about, but you have to be really careful and not feel intimidated to ask the basic questions. And if you feel something in your gut that just doesn't feel right, I say go with your gut and say thanks but no thanks. And that goes with car buying or giving your money to somebody to invest. You need to
Allison,
understand the rules.
is there anything worse than buying a car? I don't ever want to buy one again.
No, it's the research that I did, I found out that you don't even have to leave your home for like 90% of it.
Yeah. But people don't know that.
Right. You can do it literally at your computer, and you have the home advantage because you're just basically emailing and getting quotes and kind of pitting them against each other. These dealerships, it's great.
Crazy. Okay. Hello, Allison. My name is Margarita. Thank you for your transparency.
Uh,
I'm writing a book now. I have many thoughts of, quote, people already know this. I see young women struggling in silence. So I thought I would share my own methods and practices. How do I get over this fear you spoke about? Do I begin to gently ease into it? Did you feel an odd calling to write it, almost as if it's writing itself? Sorry for being a tiny bit woo-woo here. I wasn't expecting to write 40K words in 2 weeks.
oh, Margarita, thanks for the question. Uh, I did well. Yeah, I mean, I wrote this book based on my own issue. Is that I was stuck and I was so unhappy for many years, and I was stuck because I couldn't manage my own financial life and didn't feel confident about it. And I stayed in a bad situation for 3 years. And I was like, if there was something out there that can help me, I wish there was, but there wasn't. And I kind of vowed to myself that I wanted to write something that could speak to women who not necessarily just feel stuck, but like can help them understand things that they feel intimidated about when it comes to personal finance. That my goal was to take that intimidation factor away and help women feel confident in growing their own financial lives and managing their own financial lives, something that I wasn't able to do and vowed that I would help others do. So yeah, I did have a personal calling with it.
I'll just ask a couple more questions unless we get one. Oh, she said thank you.
My
But
pleasure.
what's so crazy is how women historically, even though we may not realize it, how we're almost, and we may internalize it, we may realize it, we may not, but how money is always the male thing, right? And
Yeah.
your surveys and numbers are so interesting. Like women want to know things, but they hold back. Can you kind of, that was a terrible summary I just gave, but can you explain, sorry, can you explain though how historically, how society has treated women and money? I think that's the best way to ask it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a cultural component to this, a kind of a cultural conditioning, I think, of how women and men and boys and girls are. So like I think it starts when we're girls. I mean, girls and boys are socialized differently. I mean, whether parents intend to do that or not, we probably don't, and it just happens. And it turns out that statistically, boys are introduced to the family finances earlier, and boys are often given the expectation that they have to be financially independent earlier. So girls who are less involved can become women who avoid money issues, and that avoidance can be compounding. So you know how it is, the more you avoid something, the more fearful you can become of it. So with this situation, with girls, what starts as a lack of interest can become a lack of information, which can become a lack of confidence in your ability to tackle this thing. So you don't pay attention to it, and the more you don't pay attention to it, the bigger and more challenging that thing can become. And so once we become adults, older women, we've already become socialized to think that money's not our domain and it's complex or it's something that's intimidating. So it's that cultural conditioning that can lead to that lack of confidence when it comes to managing our finances, making investment decisions, or negotiating salaries. So I mean, what I write in the book is how to change our mindset and kind of unwind this cultural conditioning and honestly, the most important step is just to not be afraid to ask questions and say what you don't understand. Talk out loud to another human about what you don't understand. You'd be surprised that, you know, you can start to get answers that way.
And journalistically, it's something I've learned. Um, that no question is a stupid question because I used to shoot my own video all the time and I'd be so focused on getting my video that I was nervous to ask questions because someone may have asked it and I may have been distracted, whatever. But you learn that I think it's better to ask it than to leave confused or not or misunderstanding the situation.
Right.
One of my favorite things, and it was at the beginning, was when you said you transformed your pain into purpose. I think if everyone could do that, it would be a better world. I
Oh,
love that. Hold on. I took notes, so I'm just looking through. I'm skipping through here. Oh, and it's also wild that millions and hundreds of millions of women in the world are basically excluded from getting access to money, period.
yeah. I mean, and those are laws, and that's more about the socialization and the cultural conditioning that runs deep. And that's something that Sheryl Sandberg spoke about. She said that these cultural components are so ingrained in societies, not even just here in the US, but around the globe, and that those are the hardest to shake. And oftentimes there are laws built around that socialized way of thinking, and it works against women in many respects, in their ability to have access to money, access to iPhones. Um, it wasn't that long ago that, women here in the States were able to, open up a credit card without a man, get a mortgage without a man. So we fought hard, we fought long and hard for those freedoms, and we shouldn't be giving them up by letting him do everything because we think he does it better. And stats show that that's not actually the case. That women are actually very good at investing versus men.
Uh, Sorry, I thought you were done. One other tip that I thought was really good, and it's a very simple line. Automation is the ultimate wealth hack. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just with investing. I mean, and honestly, I don't think you should be looking, even if you invest, you shouldn't be looking at your investments every day. I mean, that's the anxiety. I would be cringing all the time. But if
Yeah.
you automate it in a certain way based on what your budget can handle,
Yeah.
you're not even thinking about it. And before you know it, time goes by and the compounding effect is happening, and what you're earning on that money is earning on top of that. And so it just sort of it just starts going after a while, and you have to give it time, you have to be consistent, and I think automating is really the crux of that.
I love that guys, she talks about everything from gift giving to what you can actually afford when it comes to your home. But Allison, I'm going to close out with what skill set as a journalist helped you make this book as good as it is?
um Researching and interviewing, and I know that sounds just sort of obvious, but I think checking my sources not twice, but 3 times, and checking my facts 3 times, even though I know that I had an editor looking over it as well. Um, that was key. Writing, super important. I wanted to make it relatable, not judgy, and fun to read because it's a boring topic.
Well, that's what you broke it up really well with the stories, with the people's stories. Like
Thank you.
I thought it made it move real quickly, you know?
Thank you. Oh, that means a lot.
Um,
And then the interviews. Yeah, the interviews, I thought, just like what you would with any story that we write, is it brings it to life. And I wanted to bring these topics to life through voices that weren't mine, and I like what I did with it. I think that that was my vision, and I actually had my vision here, and it's exciting.
and wait, fine. One more thing. What's it like to see this in a bookstore? That must be really cool.
It's cool. It's very cool. Yes. Yeah, I was lucky enough to have my books in they're in Barnes and Noble. So, for a first-time author, it's rare. So I feel very fortunate, definitely. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add?
If you want to reach out to me, I'm on IG. Just send me a DM. I have no idea who's on this thing. But I would love to hear from you. These
And
these Zoom things are weird because I don't get to see who's
I
there.
know. We'll share, we're gonna share this. Brendan is great and he always cleans up the recording and then we put it on our page and everything. But thank you so much.
Thanks for
Wish
having
you
me.
luck. And guys, again, the name of the book is What's Up with Women and Money.
Thanks, Cecilia.
Thanks,
You're great.
Allison. Bye, everybody.
Bye.